Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Prague. Welcome at this very special occasion. By saying special, I'm not talking about the special price you had to pay for your tickets, rather special chance to listen to and possibly interact with Mr. Robert Kyiosaki. I will introduce him later, but let me just give you a few thoughts that come into my mind when I stand here in front of you. It occurs to me that there is a very specific, I would say even ironic, maybe bizarre context of our today's session. Because in this very place, in this very Congress hall, some 30 years ago, communists, the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, held its congresses. Here, the central economy was directed. Here, the 5-year plans for our economy were introduced. Here, the complete control of our society was invented. Maybe one of those communist functionaries who were present here at that time would speak about American capitalist imperialists. Well, I'm not sure if Mr. Kyiosaki is imperialist. I don't think so. But I'm sure that he is one of the most fervent supporters, advocates, defenders of capitalism, of free market. And I think it's pretty ironic and a reason for celebration that 30 years after the communist congresses, we have Mr. Kyiosaki, a defender of free market, here speaking to you in a short time. And let me just say that there is one more context that I want to point to. Not only the location, the fact that we are here in the ex-communist building, but even the timing is very conspicuous, very striking, very important. At this very moment when we are here gathering for the lecture by Mr. Kyiosaki, some 1,500 kilometers southeast from Prague, for the American audience, let's say 1,000 miles from here, a drama is developing concerning Greece. 1,500 kilometers from here, a country is possibly sliding into bankruptcy. Something which might have ripple effect on the whole European economy. Something which is likened to the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy. Something which may start a new era of uncertainty and instability. And I'm very glad that just at this time and at this location, we will shortly be able to speak and listen to Mr. Kyiosaki, who might give us a very interesting insight on the state of our economies, on the state of individual in market economy, on the forces between free market enterprise and centrally directed economy. I think it's enough for me to say at this time. I just say one technical information. Now in this first block, we will have something like 2 hours, after which we will have coffee break and continue. So consider this to be the first stage of our, I hope, very fruitful and very interesting experience that is ahead of us. And I think it's high time to invite to our stage our guest, Mr. Robert Kyiosaki, and his wife, Kim Kyiosaki.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Very kind, very kind.
Dobrý den, děkuji juste tady. It's an honor for Robert and myself to be here today. Thank you for being here, to be in your lovely city of Prague. This is our second trip. Fantastic city, beautiful city, and looking forward to today. Really appreciate you being here because right now with the whole global economic crisis, Robert and I believe that the most important thing you can do right now is to get financially educated and learn how to take care of yourself financially and not depend on all the crazy things going on throughout the world. So appreciate you being here. The women who are here, I salute you because I think we need more strong women in politics, in business, in finance, and I really give a lot of credit to the women who are here to improve their financial lives as well. To the couples that are here learning together, I salute you, and I look forward to a fantastic day with all of you. Thank you.
And for myself, I thank you. Years ago, a friend of mine, when communism ended, he says, we've got to go to Prague, and we've got to go here as soon as possible. And he says, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and we can buy it while it's still cheap. So, but unfortunately, I didn't follow his advice, and he came out here, we got busier with other things. But this is an incredible, beautiful city. It's our second time being here, and we've always enjoyed it. It's breathtaking, and I salute you for living in a great part of the world. And for those of you who are now viewing from in about 200 countries throughout the world, for those of you who are viewing via the internet, I invite you to please come and visit Prague. It'll take your breath away. It is incredible. It is an incredibly beautiful city. And what I'm most impressed at is how could people 200, 300, 400 years ago have built such a beautiful city without gasoline, without electricity. I mean, they had to have been geniuses. So with that, I invite the world to come and visit Prague, and I thank you all for being here. Thank you.
And for those of you who do not know where this event is in Prague, but actually it is, as Robert said, being broadcast throughout the world. There's about 2,500 people throughout the world in 80 different countries who are joining with us today and joining with you today because this is a global message. And so we appreciate everybody who's here. Thank you.
So this is my, for those who may not know, this is my sweetheart, Kim. We celebrate 25 years this year of marriage, and she put up with me for 25 years. That's pretty good.
People often ask me, or they assume that I married Robert for his money. I'll assure you, he had no money when we met.
But I had a nice car, though.
He had a nice car, he had a nice condo. We ate at nice restaurants, but I didn't know he was broke.
And so we've stayed together all these years. It gets better and better, and I'm really proud of her because, as you know, in most of the world, it was only in America, only in Hollywood, that 50% of the people got divorced. But now people are getting married and divorced 2 or 3, 4 times in a lifetime. So to survive 25 years is incredible. But just to make sure that Kim was independent, she has her own corporations, she has her own investments, that if we ever split up, which I don't think will ever happen, she has her own life. And I think that's the most important message that Kim brings to women, is don't depend upon a man. They're not trustworthy. So that's why it's important to be independent, but also to be in a marriage. If you're married to a poor person or a person with a bad attitude towards money, it's not a very healthy marriage. Because I know that I have a lot of friends who are very rich, but their wives are very poor. And that's not a marriage. And most of my friends have girlfriends on the side, and they will divorce their wives as soon as the kids are gone. That is not a healthy marriage. So that's why what we stand for, and the reason I come out here with Kim as a couple, is I would not be here without her. And that's what a marriage and a partnership should be. It's not just about, man goes off to work and comes home. There's more to life than that. So first of all, she is my best friend. Second, she's my business partner. And third, she's my wife. She doesn't cook for me. She doesn't clean for me. I don't need that. I hire somebody to do that. But she's...
My mother told me when I was very young, she said, Kim, if you don't want to spend your life in the kitchen, don't learn how to cook. So I took her up on that.
And she doesn't know how to cook.
But the other thing is for the couples too, because I often get the question, because I'm encouraging women and educating women to really take control of their own financial lives, the question I often hear is, do I do this by myself? And ideally, if you're in a long-term relationship, if you're married, this is something you do together. And what happened for me and Robert when I really understood money and started having my money work for me, the biggest change in our relationship is that I didn't need him. I didn't need Robert, and he didn't need me. But the change is, instead of need, it went to want. We want to be together. We don't need to be together. And that changed the relationship and brought more respect and more love to the relationship. And that's what I think is most important in relationships today, is that you come together as individuals to form a partnership, but the individuals on their own can stand alone. And I think that's very healthy.
And the final thing I'll say on the subject of marriage, again, if you have a bad partner because you're married to them, it's really tough. And what I see in a lot of marriages, after about 2 to 3 years, the couple has nothing to talk about. They have nothing in common except the kids or whatever they do. And so one goes to one place of work, one goes to another place of work if they both work, but they come back, they have nothing in common. So one of the reasons I was very, talking to him about investing, about money, is I want somebody to talk to. So today, when we're flying on planes or we're having coffee together and things like this, we talk about the economy. We talk about what's going on in this magazine or that magazine, or, what Richard Branson said or what Donald Trump said. And a lot of my friends who are married to poor women, who just wanted to marry a rich man, they don't know what to talk about. Well, the kid said this and the kid said that. And the marriage is dying at that point. So that's why I'm very glad, as Kim says, to see both men and women out here. Because marriage is one of the most important institutions you can get into your life. It can be the very best, and it can be the very worst.
It can also be the toughest.
So anyway, we're here. The reason I want to come out with Kim and all this is because, again, I wouldn't be here without her. But more importantly, I think it's more important than ever before we have strong marriages for the kids coming up. In America today, too many kids are being raised by single parents, either male or female. So thank you all for being here, men and women, because money, as you know, is a very important subject. So thank you very much. Thanks, Mary.
Put this over here.
So I'm going to ask you a question, for show of hands. How many people have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, who has not yet read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, some of you have not read it. Okay, for those that haven't read it, I'll just give you a little bit of a background on the book and myself. My name is Robert Kyiosaki. I'm fourth generation Japanese American. I was raised in Hawaii. I went to school in New York. And when I graduated from school, I went to flight school for the U.S. Navy. I flew helicopters for the Marine Corps in Vietnam, and then I came back from Vietnam in 1973 and went to work. So the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a true story about my two fathers, My real father was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. Very, very smart man, PhD, academic genius. He graduated from university in less than 2 years. And he eventually got his PhD. He eventually got to run the whole school system of the state of Hawaii. But as you know, many times, like my father being a very smart man, he had me as a son, and I flunked out of high school once and twice. And the reason I flunked out of high school was I couldn't write. So it is ironic today that I am an author. It was the last profession you think I'd ever be, because my teacher said, you cannot write. And today I've sold over 31 million copies of this book. And I think I'm going to look up my school teachers and tell them I can write now, finally, you know. So anyway, it's a story of what my rich dad, who was my best friend's father, told me about money. And as you know, we don't learn much about money at school. And so what we're taught is by the school system, by people who are poor. And we wonder why we have financial problems. Like America used to be the richest country in the world. Today, it is the poorest country in the world. People are worried about Greece right now. Greece is nothing. The Germans will bail them out. If America goes down, which it is close to going down, it will cause tidal waves throughout the world. So the reason it is important that we invest in our financial education is we are at a very critical time in world history. The rich will get very, very rich, and the poor will get very, very poor. The middle class may be wiped out. So that's why I wrote this book back in 1997, and every publisher turned it down, saying I cannot write, just like my school teacher says I cannot write. And it wasn't that I couldn't write. My teachers did not like what I write. Okay, so this is this book, and this is my latest book. It is called Unfair Advantage. This just came out 2 months ago. It is already on New York Times bestseller list, Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur Magazine list, and all this. This book is when I'm 9 years old. This book is when I'm 60 years old. I have never made so much money in the last year than any time in my life. 2010 was my best year, but unfortunately, millions of people lost everything. Today, there's about 7 million people who have lost their homes in America. 7 million people have lost their jobs and not coming back. And that's why I look at the national debt of America. It makes Greece look tiny. That's where we are today. So that's why I wrote this book, because I could see this crisis coming. And then there's this book, because this is what I'm doing today. What you will find, I'm doing the same thing. In this book, I said your house is not an asset. Your house is a liability. And yet, people still run out and buy houses. Not very smart. But this book here explains what I'm doing, my wife and I did in 2010. So that's why I'm going to talk about it today. I'm going to be talking today about what financial education is. And you will find out today why the rich get richer, even as the economy crashes. And the reason I do this is because I don't want you to be one of the persons going down. I want you to be a person who does better no matter what happens here in the Czech Republic, in England, in Poland, in South America, Japan, China. It doesn't make any difference. The rich will always get richer. And I just want you to be one of them. But you have to do your part too. Because unfortunately, most of us came from parents who weren't rich. Then we went to school and we learned from school teachers who weren't rich. So what you'll be learning today are different ideas. And some of my ideas may challenge your old ideas. So that's why we're here today for. We'll be talking about education, what financial education is. So, before I go on, I'm going to ask you to do something different. I personally didn't like school. I hated school. I still graduated. I still went to a very good school in New York. I have my Bachelor of Science degree and things like this. But I didn't get rich by anything I learned in school. And one of the other reasons I didn't like, so I was bored. I just wanted to go to school to find out how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a rich man. And they kept saying, no, 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 you must get a job. And I don't want a job. I just want to be rich. So what we're talking today about is a little bit about financial education, but also I'm going to challenge some of you right now, okay? One of the things I didn't like about school, there was two big things. They said, number one, don't make mistakes. Well, how do you learn anything if you don't make a mistake? That's why we have all these school teachers who have all the answers, but they haven't made a mistake yet. You can't walk if you don't fall down. You can't learn to ride a bicycle without falling down. And yet the school system says, don't make mistakes. That's stupid. So my poor dad, very good man, very, very good man. He knew all the answers, but he couldn't make a mistake. And at 19, when he was 50-something years old, he lost his job. So he started a business, and the business went bust. He lost everything. And he said, oh, I'm stupid because I made a mistake. Well, to be successful, you have to make more mistakes. So that's number one. Number two is this. In school, the teacher always did the talking because they had all the answers. Today, I'm not going to do all the talking. I want you to do the talking. And you'll find out the more you, in school, if I talk to a student, the teacher said I was cheating. In the business world, it's called cooperation. I'm asking somebody else to talk about something. So, I'm going to ask you right now, if you're sitting next to somebody, I'm going to ask you to turn, and for 1 minute, this is all you're going to talk about, so throughout the day, because otherwise it's going to be too boring. Me, talk, 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 talk. I will not do that. You have to do the talking. So what I'm going to ask you to do is turn to somebody next to you and discuss something for just 1 minute. One person talks for about 30 seconds. The other person talks for about 30 seconds. Okay? I don't care what you say. You could say that Kyiosaki is stupid. He doesn't know what you're talking about. I don't care what you say, but just talk. Okay? So, if you're sitting alone right now, please listen. Please find somebody to sit next to. And the reason I say that is this. Every time I do this, I look outside, and there's always somebody like my poor dad, my real father. And all these guys do, like my dad, the A students, they just put data in their head, but they cannot do anything. They don't want to talk because that's called cheating. So, if you're sitting, I'm going to ask you to move. If you're sitting by yourself, please move over and sit next to somebody else. So please do that now, or I will pick on you, or choose a partner now. Very good. Some of you moving, some of you. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Very good, audience. Hold on 1 second. This is the first test. This is the question. The question is this. Hold it. The question is this. What did your mother and father tell you about money? Now, let me bring that up. My mother and father, my mother always said, you must go to school to get safe, secure job. My father says, yes, you must have good grades. If you don't have good grades, you won't make a lot of money. Whereas my rich dad said, if you have a job, you'll never be rich. If you work hard, you won't make much money. So I want you to think, today is about you. You cannot learn something new if you have the same old stuff in your head. So I'm going to ask you to challenge yourself. Again, my poor dad said, go to school, get a job. And my rich dad says, if you get a job and you work hard, you'll never get rich. You'll pay too much in taxes. So the advantage I had was that I had two fathers to listen to. I didn't know which one I was going to listen to until I came back from Vietnam. And when I came back from Vietnam in 1973, my poor dad didn't have a job. Even though he was a PhD, doctorate, very smart man, he couldn't find a job. And that is what's going on across America today. Unemployment is so high. People my age cannot find jobs. And the reason they can't find jobs is because they've been programmed to think like an employee, not an entrepreneur. So I want you to think about that. So I want to give you 1 minute, and after 1 minute, I'm going to say, please begin finishing up and stop. When I say stop, please stop. Otherwise, we can't go on. So throughout the day, especially when I get boring, I'm going to ask you to talk because I don't want you to fall asleep on me. Okay? So you have 1 minute. Find a partner and talk to each other about what your mother and father told you about money. 1 minute, ready, go. Please begin finishing up. And stop. This is a very good group. Thank you very much. When I do this in New York, they don't like to talk. They sit there like this. You know. So I thank you for being a very participatory group. I'm going to go on and explain a little bit more. I'll explain why Rich Dad, Poor Dad has sold so many copies as best I can explain. It's very simply, it defined why the rich get richer. and I put it in pictures. Now, I didn't do very well in school, so I like to draw pictures all the time. And so Rich Dad did the same thing for me. I just drew pictures. So when I was a little boy, my Rich Dad very simply drew a diagram like this. This is called income, expense, asset, liability. This is the basics of financial intelligence, financial education. This is called, in accounting terms, this is called an income statement or a P&L, and this is called a balance sheet. And unfortunately, what most people do is they look at this by itself or they look at this by itself. They don't look at the relationship between these two. So the reason so many people get in trouble is they don't know what an asset is. So if you take nothing else from today, please take this with you. Assets, this is the definition. Assets put money in your pocket, whether you work or not. I'll say it again. An asset will put money in your pocket, whether you work or not. So the most important word in financial education is this word here. So what I'm looking at is I want to see which way the cash is flowing. So this is an asset, and it's putting money in my pocket whether I work or not. And the next definition is liability. A liability takes money from your pocket whether you work or not. So for most people, they call their house an asset when it's really a liability. They call their car an asset when it's really a liability. And this is the main reason in America we have a middle class that's dying right now. Because what's happening in America is their houses are going into foreclosure, their cars are being repossessed when they lose their job. And meanwhile, the rich, because the prices are falling, my wife and I keep adding more and more assets. That's why I write about in Unfair Advantage, this book here, that 2010 was the best year of our lives. We never made so much money. And the reason is because, unfortunately, these people were losing because they were buying liabilities they thought were assets, and we were buying their assets. So in 2010, very good year, extremely good year. So the point is, nothing has changed. This is when I'm 9 years old, this is when I'm 60 years old. But I know the difference between assets and liabilities. So, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Anything can be an asset. This book is an asset. I make $2 per book, 31 million copies. That's $62 million. Every year, more money comes in my pocket. Once a quarter, every 3 months, money comes in my pocket. Love this book. So please hear me. Anything can be an asset. Even here in the Czech Republic. This electricity is somebody's liability, but the cash to pay for this electricity is somebody else's asset. In America, if I buy a car and I buy a taxi license with it, so a taxi driver borrows my car and he or she drives my taxi all over town, but they pay me for my car. So a car can be an asset or a liability. My wife and I just bought a boat, and the boat is in a charter business. So every month, it's money in my pocket, every month. My wife owns 3,500 apartment houses. Every month, money puts in her pocket. I have oil wells. Money comes in my pocket. I have other businesses. Money comes in my pocket. It is the thing that makes the rich rich. And the poor and middle class struggle because the biggest mistake for the poor and middle class is they don't know assets from liabilities. And the middle class right now is out shopping, looking for new cars, new houses, stuff like this. And they're going to be poor, same as in America. Now, it's not that easy to write a book that sells 31 million copies. I got lucky. But you can do it too. But you just have to know what assets do. Assets put money in your pocket, and assets are all around you. If money is flowing out here, like this, it is flowing in here on somebody else's financial statement. As an entrepreneur, I want money flowing in. The middle class has money flowing out. Does that make sense? So, would you please take a moment and discuss assets versus liabilities? If you're really brave, you can talk about how many assets you have or don't have, but you don't have to do that, okay? But we're going to go into assets versus liabilities. So please determine assets and liabilities. Assets, the definition, puts money in my pocket. Liabilities, take money from my pocket. Ready, go. Please discuss the definition. 1 minute. Stop. Thank you, partners. All right. So, if you just understand what makes people rich are assets, what makes people poor, liabilities. Really that simple. So, in the world, there are 4 basic asset classes. Number 1 is a business. This is what makes the richest people in the world rich. Today, we have 18 and 19-year-old billionaires. This guy Zuckerberg, who started Facebook, guys who started Google, Jobs, who created Apple. All never finished school, but this is the number 1 asset. Number 2 is real estate. This property is real estate. Buildings outside, houses are real estate. Number 3, paper. also called derivatives. Papers could be savings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Okay? That's what most people invest in, and I'll explain why. And number 4, commodities. Commodities could be gold, oil, silver, corn, soybeans, cattle, hogs, things like that. Okay? So the reason I want Kim up here is I want to talk to him. When Kim and I, every year, at the start of the new year, instead of arguing about money, we talk about how many more assets we're going to create for the year. So this year alone, we're starting 2 new businesses, and I think we've added 1,100 new units this year.
1,100 units, yes.
Okay. So you explain what we do as husband and wife.
Well, I mean, every year we get together and we set our goals. So we have our business goals for our business. We have our fitness goals. We have our relationship goals, and we have our asset column goals. So every year we go through and go, how many assets do we want to add to the asset column? So for example, Robert likes oil and gas. It's not my favorite. We have different likes in assets. My favorite asset, and what I understand the most, is real estate. We also do a lot with commodities. So we sit down and go, okay, so how many real estate units are we going to add to our asset column this year? How many oil and gas properties are we going to add to our asset column this year? How much gold and silver? How much paper are we going to add? So we just go down the list and we have a goal for our asset columns, probably one of our biggest goals. That, and I would say our fitness goal is the 2 biggest goals. And the change for me in my mindset, the real shift for me in my mindset happened from shifting from, I was always taught to focus on income, to focus on my job salary, to focus on wages, to focus on my hourly rate if I'm a consultant, and if I can work more hours or I can raise my rates. I was always taught to focus on income. And the shift for me came when I started instead focusing on assets, because assets is what allowed Robert and I to become financially free. And when we became financially free in 1994, people assumed we had millions of dollars to live off of, but we didn't. We had $10,000 a month from our assets that went into our income column, so $10,000 a month from our assets, but our expenses, our living expenses, were only $3,000 per month. So at that point, we were financially free. And that was the difference, shifting from focusing on income to focus on assets.
So please take a moment and discuss with the person sitting next to you. See, the point here is this. I don't care if we're in the Czech Republic, if we're in Europe, or if we're in Japan, South America. These are the 4 basic assets. And whichever one you like the most. I love business. I love starting businesses. I enjoy it. I also love real estate. I actually like paper because I have millions of shares of stock. But it's millions of shares of stock of my company I took public, or Kim and I did, through what's called an IPO, initial public offering. We started a silver mine in South America, a gold mine in China, and then we just now started a copper mine in Argentina. Because I am an entrepreneur, but that's all business. And then we have commodities such as oil. I like oil because every month the check comes in. I don't invest in oil stocks. I want the oil production. We own the oil well. And all of you can do the same thing, no matter where you live today.
And you know, of course, our whole thing is financial education. And so Robert was investing in oil and gas, and I didn't really know much about it. I wasn't all that interested. And so just a couple months ago, he and I flew to an oil field in California, of which we own a percentage of, and actually spent several hours learning, talking to engineers, talking to the people who are running it, understanding where it goes, how it works. And actually now I've become a lot more interested because I increased my education about oil and gas. But until that time, I had very little interest. And of course, When we put some money into it, I get real interested. So the education never ends.
I started in oil in 1966, so I've been in oil for much of my life. That's why I enjoy it. But the point here is this, I would say this is the hardest.
Yeah.
To be an entrepreneur, to have more than 500 employees, this is the hardest. This is the next hardest. It takes the next intelligence because it's about debt. You have to learn to handle debt. You have to learn to manage people, laws, and things like this. Paper is relatively easy to get into. That's why most people are in it. And commodity is a little tougher. So this, I would say, is the easiest to get into, but this is the smartest one. So you have, thank Mr. Poliak for being here today of ZFP, because his company teaches people to be entrepreneurs, to be business owners. It's a different mindset. So the point here is this, you can do anything you like, but the question is, which are you most interested in? I am most interested in this. Okay. Second this, third this, fourth this. But we have all four. Some people have zero. That's what makes them poor. So even if you have nothing, as Kim says, when I met her, I was at zero. We were at zero. But every year, right after Christmas, we sit down and we talk like husband and wife. And we don't talk about how much money she spent on Christmas cards or gifts. We talk about what assets we're going to add. So by 1994, as Kim says, and we'd been married 8 years, right?
8 years.
We got married in '86, been married 8 years. We had $10,000 a month coming in whether we worked or not, and we had $3,000 going out that way. We're free. Very simple. Today, it's about $2 million a month. Every year we add more to it. Every year we add more to it. And that's why the rich get richer. I don't want a job because it would interfere with my getting rich. Okay. Next year,
Double.
goal is $4 million a month. A lot of people don't make $1 million a year. To make $4 million a month is a lot of money. But you can do it if you work at it slowly but surely, slowly but surely. As your intelligence grows, your returns increase. That's this unfair advantage number 5 in this book is called the law of compensation. That I'm doing the same thing. We have never changed. This, the same. The only thing that's increased are the zeros. And 10 years from now, maybe $100 million a month. Because I'm doing the same thing. I'm always studying. I'm always learning. I don't want money. I want assets. Rule number 1 in this book, if you read the book, rule number 1 is the rich don't work for money. I do not work for money. I work for assets. As soon as I can create an asset, I'm on to the next one. Because the asset, as Kim will talk about the oil fields, every month for the next 100 years, that oil field will put money in our pocket. And that's why the rich get richer. That's why right now between Russia and China and other parts, they're fighting for the pipelines for gas and oil. Because that's what the rich want. They want the pipelines of oil and gas. They want the businesses. They want the real estate. They don't want a job. So I want to ask you to take a minute. So you can, if you're married, what do you guys talk about?
And I would add this, to get to 10,000 a month, I mean, it's a process. It is a process. I started in '89 with a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and it was 5 years before Robert and I got to 10,000. So it's a process, and I don't know why people think when it comes to building your wealth and building money, building a business, that it's going to happen overnight. That doesn't happen. It comes one step at a time, taking baby steps and growing and growing. So it took us 5 years to get here, and then it took us another about 15 years to get here. But my point is that it's a process, and it comes from learning, because I couldn't do a lot of the investments we do today. I couldn't do that when I was starting out because I didn't know anything. So I just started very small with very small money, very small projects, and just built from there. But it was a process. It takes time.
So if you're married and you're sitting with your spouse now, your husband or your wife, maybe you should talk about this every Christmas rather than fight about money, you know. So please take a moment and discuss what we just talked about here, assets versus liabilities, how financial education increases the more you stay with it over the years. There's 4 asset classes. Which one do you like the best? And start with that one. It doesn't make any difference. Just start and have a good time, you know. And every year you'll get richer and richer. But if you just focus on how much money you make from your job, you'll find out that you'll only pay more tax. Okay, so 1 minute, discuss what we just talked about. Ready, go. Please begin finishing up. And stop. Great group. So thank you. Kim wants to talk about, we always talk about starting small, so she started with one house. It was a little 2-bedroom house. But today, and it took a while, today she has about 3,500 houses. So every month they send checks. Every single month. We do not buy houses that cost us money, because then there would be a liability. But this is the biggest point for women, is that this is Kim's assets. It's her company. It's not my company. And the reason I say that is I don't trust most men. Okay? If you're a woman and you have sex and you get stuck with a kid, you're in big trouble. If you marry a man who is poor, you're in very big trouble, especially if you have kids. Or if the guy loses his job, you're in big trouble. Or the guy runs off with a younger woman, you're in big trouble. And so what I know it probably doesn't happen anywhere but America. But in America, this is what they fight about. When it comes time for a divorce, they want the money. It's not about love anymore. It's about the money. And so that's why when I met Kim, I wanted her to have her own business, her own corporations, that just in case, which I'm not planning on it, I fool around, she just says out. She doesn't have to fight me. It's hers. Okay? Anything you want to say?
Well, I heard a quote the other day. It said, this woman was giving this other woman advice. She said, don't marry for money, divorce for money. But the point is this. The point is this, is for women, you know, so oftentimes we don't make our finances a priority until the wake-up call happens, until the divorce happens, until the death of a spouse happens, until a job layoff. And when those things happen, you know, the emotional trauma is pretty severe. So if you're not prepared financially and you have to go through this wake-up call, this trauma, then on top of it, you've also got the trauma of your finances. So, for example, in the U.S., divorce, 50% of couples, of marriages ends in divorce. Of the elderly living in poverty, 80% are women. 80% of women live in poverty. And of that 80% of those women weren't poor when their husbands were alive. So they were depending upon their husband to take care of them. He passes away, they divorce, she has no idea about the money, and the next thing you know, she's broke. So I say this a little flippantly, but it's also quite seriously. I think the two riskiest things a woman can do today is, number one, for her financial life. For her financial life, I think two of the riskiest things a woman can do today is, number one, fall in love and get married. Number two, have children. And I'm not against marriage and I'm not against kids, but the reason I say that is because so often when a woman gets married, she then depends upon her husband for her financial well-being. Heaven forbid something happens, divorce, whatever, and then she has no clue, and then she becomes one of these statistics of people that are living below the poverty line. So as Robert said, if anything were to happen to me or to us, you know, financially I'm prepared. That's not going to be an issue. There'll be other issues, but money won't be the issue. So I really encourage women to get out there, start building your asset column, start making that a priority. You know, if you're married, do it together. If you're single, find people around you who will support you in doing that. But create your assets, start building your assets so that no matter what happens for you personally, and no matter what happens in the world economy, you're prepared financially. That's my message. That's important. Thank you.
So without appearing like a male chauvinist pig, I'll just say this. I am one. But most guys, when they get divorced, they don't go for older women. You know, I have a friend who's been divorced 3 times. He gets older, but his wife's always the same age, 25. And the problem, and I know for myself, the older I get, I can still attract younger women because I have money. But if you're a woman, it gets harder. So that's why I do this talk with Kim, is to say to women, don't be naive. I mean, sex is very powerful when you're young. But as you get older, men get more stupid, And I know a lot of men fool around. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he has one house, 6 kids, 7 wives, whatever he had going on, But I don't do that stuff. But I'm saying it's a real world. So that's why when I met Kim, I wanted her, this is Kim's. This is mine. I like my oil. I like my gold. I like my silver. I like my real estate. I like my businesses. But we're separate. We know which one she's going to take, and she's gone. The best thing about it is, if we lost it all, she's smart, because she's got the education to get it back again. If you don't have the education, you can't get it back. So that's why we as a couple go and speak, and we encourage people to have strong marriages. I encourage men to not fool around. Look at Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner's 85 years old, and his future wife, his future ex-wife, is 25 years old. There's 60 years difference. This is how stupid sex and money is. Only she'd marry him is for money. Right? You look at Kate, who married Prince William. Would she have married Prince William if he was a plumber? No. So that's why, that's why money and sex and relationships, very important subject. So would you please take a moment and discuss, what's important to you? We really want people to have strong marriages, to be good to their children, to be good role models. But that's not always the way life is. So please take a moment and discuss why it's important for a person like Kim to have her own assets and I to have my own assets. Ready, go. And stop. Thank you, partners. Final word, Kim, on this.
Final word on sex and money. I just want to tell a quick story of a couple that Robert and I know. And this was about a month ago. They were visiting, and they have two young girls. One girl is 18, about to graduate college, and the other daughter...
High school.
High school, excuse me, high school, not college. She's 18, about to graduate high school, and their other daughter is 14. And I was talking to the woman, and I said, you know, your girls are getting older. They're going to be moving out of the house pretty soon. There's probably some things you want to do in your life. You know, I'm happy to work with you. I gave her some suggestions on things she might want to start considering, because maybe there's a business or maybe there's other things that she wants to pursue. I said, I'm sure you have a lot of interests and things you've kind of put on the back burner raising your girls. She is a mom and takes care of the house. And she looked at me and she goes, you know, I was kind of waiting for this kind of excitement to bounce up, and she looks at me and she goes, no, I really don't have anything I really want to do. And I'm like, so what's going to happen when the girls move out? Oh, well, that all depends on whatever my husband wants to do. And I'm like, okay. And that's not the end of the story. So I mentioned it that night to Robert, and I said, I'm kind of surprised that she really doesn't have any ambition. And Robert looks at me and he goes, well, she's in for a real rude awakening, because her husband was talking to Robert and said, as soon as the girls move out, I'm gone.
And he's already got a...
So it's an example of there's going to be a fight, and it's going to be about money, because she's going to be scared to death because she has no money and she has no education and she has no skills to take care of herself financially. So another statistic.
And he's already got a girlfriend.
Oh, probably many.
And I said to Kim, is it possible she really does not know that he doesn't come home and all that? I don't know.
I don't know.
So that's why, you know, again, money is a very important subject. Please treat it that way. If you're married, you know, talk about the asset column. If you're married and you don't have much of an asset column, it's cheaper to get divorced when you're poor, not when you're rich.
And I also say...
Well, that's not funny.
No. And I also say, especially for women, money has the power to enslave us, and it also has the power to set us free. So what we're talking about today is being free.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, these are the 4 basic asset classes. Which one you like the best is up to you. You know, don't let anybody tell you which one is good or bad for you. So I'm going to go into financial education a little bit today. And I would say number 1, is attitude. I meet so many people with a bad attitude. If you have a bad attitude, how can you get educated? Like my friend's wife, she has a bad attitude. She says, Larry is going to make the money for me. So, okay. And Larry tells me something different. I go, okay. You know, it's just different. With her attitude, she will never learn. Never. Another thing about attitude, there are people with poor people's attitude. And that attitude is, oh, the rich are evil. Or I'll never be rich. Or money's not that important to me. Obviously, that's not people here today, because you wouldn't be here if you had that attitude. There's also a middle-class attitude. The middle-class attitude is, oh, I just want a house, a nice BMW, and nice job. And that is a middle-class attitude. You know, that's a lot of people. There's nothing right or wrong with it. That's all they want. And then there's the rich attitude. And that's up to you. But attitude is most important. There's another thing I want to talk about attitude, because I'm going to go into financial education. I run into this no matter where I go in the world. I talk about buying 3,000, or Kim's buying, this year she bought 1,100 units. And no matter where I go in the world, it could be in the States or this, somebody will always say, and this is the bad attitude, you can't do that here. I could be in Phoenix, Arizona, where I do it, and they say, you can't do that here. I come to Prague, and people will say, you can't do this in Prague. And I've been in South Africa. I said, no, you can't do this in South Africa. That's a bad attitude. What I say to people is, look, maybe you can't do it, but somebody is doing it here. And what I say to everybody, even during communist times, there were rich people. And rich people were rich because they have a rich attitude. They might have been crooks, but they still had a rich attitude. Okay? I have been in some of the poorest villages in Africa, and there's always 2 or 3 rich guys. No matter where I go, everybody else is poor, but they're rich. And I've been in Mexico. I've been walking in the desert of Mexico, and there's still rich guys out there. I'm going, oh. They own large ranches and haciendas and estancias, No matter where you go, there's always rich people, but it starts with an attitude. And the reason I'm saying that is I know some of you are already saying, you can't do that here in Prague, or you can't do that wherever you are in the world, because we're on the web. It is that attitude that keeps you poor. It is that attitude. Or, I want it to be easy. If it's easy, I'll do it. If it's hard, I'm not going to do it. I wish I could say, for me, getting rich was easy. It wasn't. I failed so many times. The hardest thing about failing was hanging out with bad people with bad attitudes, like my family. Oh, I told you should get a job. Why do you want to start your own business? I said, because I want to be free. No, you should play it safe. Get a job. My father, a PhD. Do you know the statistics on this? My father had all the facts and figures, but he had no money. Very smart, but no money. Bad attitude. He thought he could get rich just by having the right answers. Stupid, stupid, stupid. This is where it counts, in the money. Okay? Where it shows up is when your banker looks at this, your banker says, oh, I like this person. If all you have is this, the banker doesn't like you. In America today, people are saying, oh, I can't get a loan. I can't get loans. Banks won't give me a loan. The reason the bank won't give you a loan is because you're stupid. Banks have to loan money. Banks would love to loan you money. They need to loan money. If they don't loan money, the world goes broke. Okay, let me explain why really quickly. If you put your savings here, and this is the bank, your savings are an asset or a liability. They're a liability because they have to pay you interest. Bankers don't want your savings because every time you put savings in the bank, they got to pay interest on it. What the banker wants is somebody like me or Kim to come along and put up debt. Can I borrow this money? And the more I can borrow, the more money they're going to give me. So in America today, the last property that Kim bought, it was a property at one time was worth $27 million US, and the bank says, we'll give you $21 million, just take it off our hands. So they gave her the $21 million because she can pay the debt back, because the property will pay for the debt. So if you can understand this, and if you can say, well, that's not the way here is in the Czech Republic. Look, it is this way. The reason they're terrified of Greece right now is because Greece can't pay this back. So in America today, they're giving money hand over fist to everybody. Please take the money. But people with no financial education, they're not going to loan the money to. So that's why I want to say, it takes education, it takes practice, making mistakes. But number one thing is attitude. If you're sitting there right now saying, well, that sounds too hard, I don't want to do that, you can't do that here, you know, just give me the answer, tell me what to do, bad attitude. Because with that, I'm going to come up right now and I'm going to bring up the next thing that's part of financial education. Taxes. I cannot believe how high your taxes are. Drives me crazy. Okay. But what you're going to find out in this book, Unfair Advantage here, so this is the diagram here. E stands for employee. This is my poor dad. Go to school, get a job. This is my poor mother. Become a doctor, become a specialist, become self-employed, be a small business. And this is my rich dad over here. In a little while, I'm going to bring up my tax strategist, my tax accountant, and all this, and he'll explain taxes. The people that pay the taxes are these guys here, the people that went to school, the smart students. The people that don't pay taxes are on this side, legally. But they'll never tell you that. One of the ways to get rich is don't pay tax, legally. You don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail and be some guy's boyfriend in jail, you know. That's why you have to be smart. But the government will give you tax breaks if you're on this side of the money side. So with that, I'm going to bring up my tax strategist, my personal CPA. It's Tom Wheel right here. Before we begin, would you mind giving a little of your background?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's great to be here. Thank you for having us here in Prague. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like Robert and Kim, my second time here and won't be my last time. I did like a lot of you, I went to college to get a job. And I started, first I went to college and then I decided that wasn't enough school, so I went to more school and received my master's of professional accounting degree. And that specialty that I received there was in taxes and tax law, because I love tax law. I find it one of the most interesting subjects in the world. And I'm going to tell you today, it's not nearly as difficult as it seems, and it's the same all over the world. Once I finished my college, my graduate school, I went to work with one of the largest accounting firms in the world. I know they have an office, I believe they have an office here, Ernst & Young. And I was there for 7 years, including 3 years in their national tax office, during the time which there was major tax legislation enacted in the United States that had impact not just in the United States, but all over the world. That was in 1986. I spent, like I said, 7 years with Ernst & Young, and then I decided to go, I wanted a different experience, and I went to work for a Fortune 500 company, was the in-house tax advisor for one of the largest, actually at the time, the largest corporation in Arizona and one of the largest corporations in the world. After that, I'd had enough of big companies, and like many of you, I started to understand that over here, I was never going to get rich. And so what I did was I moved down here. I opened my own business. But Robert said a very important thing today, and it's about attitude and where you're looking. because I was never looking to stay here. When I started my accounting firm, it was always with the goal of being over here. Never meant to stay here. I have friends who started their accounting firms, and they're still here. 15 years after I started my accounting firm, they started theirs, and they're still here. I'm in Prague. They're home doing tax work. I'm here in Prague with you guys, because what we've done is we've turned our service business, our accounting business, into a big company where we serve clients all over the world. In fact, we have clients on 6 continents now. Many here in Europe and many in Asia and even in South Africa. So that's a little bit of my background. What I'd like to tell you most of all, though, is that taxes, as Robert says, they're the single biggest expense, and they're the single easiest way for you to put money in your pocket, is to reduce your taxes. It's absolutely the easiest thing to do. It's the fastest way to put money in your pocket, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Keep going.
All right. So let me explain, first of all, the whole principle of the tax law. Every country, first of all, the tax law is basically the same for income taxes. Okay, the rates may differ, some of the details differ, but the basic tenets of the tax law, the reason for the tax law, are precisely the same in every country.
And this is why I started with attitude. Because every time Tom starts talking about taxes, there's some idiot out there, wherever they are in the world, will say, well, you can't do that here. The tax laws are different here in Prague or the Czech Republic. Tax laws are different in Mexico. Tax laws are different in China. They're not different. They're all basically the same. The same as banks are basically the same all over the world. Banks take in savings and they lend out loans. That's their business. So I want you to please pay attention, because for most people, if you did what your mother and father told you, go to school and get a job, or go to school and become a doctor or a lawyer, you will pay the most taxes. What we're doing our best is to shift your attitude, your point of view, that this is where the tax law wants you to be. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So in a typical tax law, take, for example, in the U.S., and I suspect your tax law is identical. I just finished writing a book that's scheduled to be published next January called Tax-Free Wealth. And when I did, I looked at lots of different countries. And what I found is that the tax laws indeed were very similar country to country in their purpose and in their execution. So, for example, in the United States, there's one line in the tax law that says all income is taxable unless we say it isn't. Okay, now that's really all they need to say. Okay, now your tax law has a similar language. Everything's taxable unless the government says it's not. Well, that's pretty easy. Now all you need is a couple of rate charts, and you're done. But see, the tax law is volumes. It's thousands of pages. The reason is because most of the tax law is dedicated to providing incentives, tax reduction for people that are business owners and investors. It's essentially a series of stimulus packages for these guys. Now, somebody has to pay for that. Who pays for the tax breaks that come over here? It's these guys over here, the employees and the self-employed. But there's a reason. There's a very logical reason why there's so many tax incentives for business owners and investors. Let me ask you a question. If you got a tax break for doing something, how many of you would do it? Right? You'd do that something, wouldn't you? Because you get a tax break for it. See, governments understand that if they give you a tax break, you're going to take some certain action. Well, the action they want you to take is they want you to create a business. Because if you create a business, then you create jobs. So they want you to create a business. See, we're not talking about loopholes. We're not talking about things that you're trying to get away with. These are all intentional. This is how the tax law is built. Think about the investor, the real estate. Robert was talking about his real estate. I love real estate because of all the tax benefits from real estate. See, real estate is, in most countries, the single biggest tax benefit goes to people who own investment real estate. People who own a building like this are getting huge tax breaks for owning this building. Why? Because the government wants buildings like this built. They want to have houses built. They want to have apartments built. They want to have flats built. They want these things built so that people have places to live. And the government doesn't want to do the building themselves. Okay, that's the government in communism, that's what they want to do, right? But in capitalism, they want the people to build it, the investors to do it. And so that's why they give tax incentives for people investing in real estate. Robert talked about his oil and gas investments. Oil and gas, in the U.S., one of the greatest tax benefits that there is investing in oil and gas. Why? Because the government wants oil and gas to be drilled in the United States. They want more drilling. So anything that the government wants you to do, they're going to give you an incentive through the tax law, because the government understands that if you get a little bit of an incentive from a tax standpoint, then you'll invest a lot of money to get that little bit of incentive. So there's a lot of leverage to giving a little bit of a tax break in order to get a lot of investment in a certain way. And again, in order to pay for all that, somebody has to pay for it, and the people who pay for it are the employees and the self-employed.
So, the reason I start with this here is some of you right now are saying, oh, this is good. I'm going to do something about this. And there's others of you sitting out there right now who are saying, that's too dangerous. That's too risky. I'd rather pay the tax, or I'd rather be a tax cheat and not tell them. The most important thing is an attitude. See, my poor dad, no matter how much money he made, he just paid more in tax. And my rich dad said, that's really stupid. And right now, it's your attitude. The reason I have very little respect for school teachers is because they don't teach you this. They just tell you to work hard, make more money, pay more tax. That's stupid from my point of view, and maybe smart from another person's point of view. The most important thing is your attitude right now. Because it doesn't make any sense to work harder to make more money, to pay more in tax. It is not intelligent. So the most important thing is you get in touch with what's going on inside your head right now. Because all I'm doing is what the government wants me to do. That when I create businesses, they give me great tax breaks.
That's right.
Many, many. Right now, Obama, he's giving me tax breaks. Love the guy. Wonderful man. And the more money I make here, the more Kim buys real estate here.
That's right.
Because if I don't invest in real estate here, I pay it in tax anyway. Again, education is your attitude. Some of you have come here today just to be told a few quick tricks. All I'm sharing with you, and Kim is sharing with you, and Tom is sharing with you, is why the rich are getting richer, why the poor and middle class are working harder, paying more in taxes, and then going on strike when they can't live. The reason I'm glad you guys are here is you have a chance to change your mind about something. Just change your attitude. We're going to take a break, and if you have a chance, come and talk to Tom. Because you'll also run into accountants who will say, Tom is not telling you the truth. I have had many, many bad or poor tax accountants, but I kept looking until I found the one that I liked who fit me. And as Tom says, most accountants are over here.
That's right.
Tom is over here. So if you ask advice from this guy, they're going to give you tax advice for these people. But the most important thing is your attitude. Education starts with attitude. When I understood this as a young boy on taxes, I went, good, I'll do what it takes. But it meant I couldn't have a job anymore. I had to shift over here. So please take a moment and discuss what you heard, but most importantly, your attitude. I know some of you are saying, the tax man is going to come and put me in jail. That's an attitude. We don't want you to go to jail. We just want you to get smarter. Some of you will say, I'll just keep working harder and pay more taxes. That's your choice. I'd rather get smarter about taxes. That's my attitude. So please take a moment and discuss not so much taxes, but your attitude towards taxes. 1 minute, ready, go. And stop. Thank you, partners. Again, education is attitude, understanding taxes. When I was a young boy, the reason I asked you what your mother and father said to you, my mother and father wanted me to come here. And my rich dad wanted me to come here. And one of the reasons is taxes. So Tom, which are the best asset classes for taxes?
Well, absolutely, without exception, in every country, the best asset class for taxes is business. And that's because businesses create jobs. The second one, in most countries, is real estate. Then you have to go down to commodities, tends to be, because the government wants farming, they want agriculture, those are commodities, they want minerals, natural resources to be developed, and so there's commodities. And paper, because paper is all simply a derivative of these others, it has the least number of tax breaks. Let me, if I could, just give you a little bit of attitude shift right now. How many of you would like to pay 10 to 40% less in taxes tomorrow? Okay, now let's check that again. How many of you would like to pay 10 to 40% less in taxes tomorrow? Okay, now, here's the very simple way to do it. The tax law is dependent on your facts and circumstances. It's all dependent on your facts and circumstances. So if you want to change your tax, all you have to do is change your facts. If you want to change your tax, you just have to change your facts. So if your facts are that you're an employee or self-employed, your taxes are high. If you change your facts so that now you start a business, now you start investing, now you've changed your facts, and now you can lower your taxes. So that's all it takes. That's the attitude. That's the whole concept shift here that we want you to get, is that if you're thinking that taxes are bad, they're evil, I hate the government, they're going to come get me, that's the attitude that belongs over here. See, these people over here don't have that attitude. These people over here understand that taxes are there to provide incentives to them, to what they do. So all we have to do is change our attitude. Once we change our attitude, we can begin changing our facts. We can start investing over here, which reduces our taxes.
What this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, said, lesson number 1, is the rich don't work for money. I want to work for assets. And the tax law wants you to do the same thing. But the problem is, so many people have been trained, well, I'll come over here. What Tom is saying is you can keep your daytime job,
Right.
but start a part-time business. You can keep your little S business and become a professional real estate investor.
That's right.
Or you can invest in oil and gas. You can do that. The problem is most people have a bad attitude. I just want to work harder. Working harder is a poor man's attitude. It's not very educated. The reason I was brought here by Mr. Proliak or ZFP, they encourage people to start a part-time business. Because the moment you start a part-time business, you're starting to think on this side here. And all across the United States, I talk about network marketing and all this. I said, keep your daytime job, but start a part-time network marketing business. Most intellectual Americans go, oh, I don't want to do that. Bad attitude. So they'll just pay more and more tax for the rest of their lives. How many people think that taxes are going to go up pretty soon? Okay. And that's why I take this time here. You can stay here, but what Tom is doing is you can be here too. You can be all places, but it takes a shift in attitude. Now, the final thing, I'll let you talk about it again, because this is taxes. What my poor dad always said was go to school and get a job. What's wrong with that from tax perspective?
Pay the highest taxes.
Employees pay the highest taxes.
Right.
These guys pay the highest right here.
Yep.
Save money. What's wrong with saving money?
Pay high taxes. Retirement income, always at the highest tax rate.
So when they say to you, go to school, get a job, save money, put it into a retirement plan, you'll pay the highest taxes. That's not bad advice, but from a tax point of view, I don't like it. I'd rather be smarter. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I would say for $95% of the population, that's good advice. Because they lack ambition, bad attitude, and don't want to study any harder. So they'll pay the highest taxes. They'll just do as they're told. But if you're sitting here today and you've come for some easy answers, the easiest answer of all is change your attitude.
That's right.
The people who are going to school to work hard, to save money, and put it in retirement will make the least money of all throughout the world. Okay? So if you've come for some kind of education, this is the education. I'm not saying you have to do anything about it, but at least you know. When I was in school, I used to ask my teachers, I said, why don't you teach me about taxes? The reason they couldn't teach me about taxes is they didn't know. All they knew was go to school and get a job, work hard, like my poor dad. All of you know something a little bit different now. It's up to you. It's your choice. You make up your mind. I made up my mind a long time ago. I didn't want to listen to my poor dad. He was a poor man because he had a poor attitude and he paid too much in tax. Hardworking, saving money, and all this stuff, he couldn't change. Okay. Any final comments on tax?
Yeah, the sad thing is now, after this short discussion, you know more about taxes and how the tax law works than probably your tax accountant knows. Because it's not common knowledge that this is what the tax law is for. And once you understand the purpose of the tax law and how the tax law works, then it's a matter of taking it into your own hands. And then it's a matter of doing something about it, finding an advisor who can help you. Tomorrow I'm on my way to Germany to meet with a tax advisor in Germany who understands this exactly the same way I do. And we both search for other tax advisors who can do this type of work because they understand that the tax law is there for business owners and investors, and that it's so simple. It doesn't take much action. Like Kim said, she started with a two-bedroom, one-bath house. Well, there were tax breaks with that two-bedroom, one-bath house. You can start small. You start a multi-level marketing business. It doesn't have to be a big business. It can be a small one. You can start small and begin to get the tax benefits. And as you start taking that action, then what happens is your attitude begins shifting with it because you start seeing benefit, you start getting more, you do more, and you get more benefit, and then all of a sudden you've got this whole shift from being a poor person to being a rich person.
See, most people, and I suspect most people in this room, what they have is a job. And the problem with a job is when the money comes in, the first line is tax.
That's right.
This is all in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the government takes it. By starting a part-time business, or buying real estate for an investment, not a house, or doing some paper or doing commodities, you avoid the tax. It's the law. It's why the rich are getting richer. But the attitude shift is, I don't want a high-paying job. I want to create assets. And that's why I started with assets. That's the difference. On my books, do I pay less tax than if I was working?
Absolutely. Oh, a lot less tax than if you were working.
I make millions from my books. I pay very little in tax. We make millions from real estate. How much do we pay in tax?
Zero.
Zero.
Zero from the real estate.
I know some of you are saying you can't do this here in the Czech Republic, or you can't do it in the world. That's an attitude problem. Taxes are the same. Banks are the same. I love my banks. I love savers. I borrow their money. Okay? So this is financial education. It's a choice. So please take a minute and discuss what Tom was talking about with taxes and all this, that you can keep your job, but start a part-time business. Go learn about real estate. Do something else. Just don't keep working for money. Ready, go.
you.
And stop. Thank you, partners. Okay. As I said, every year Kim and I sit and we discuss what assets we're going to acquire for the year. But before we acquire the asset, what do?
We discuss all the ramifications and we discuss the tax consequences of it.
Anything else you want to say?
Well, no, I do. Actually, when it comes to taxes, there's something we've had tax advisors before, and they were not good tax advisors. And I never, ever, ever wanted to meet with them because every time we would meet with them, all they would say is, this is how much tax you have to pay. Okay? There was no tax strategy, there was no tax planning, there was no figuring it out together. It was just, okay, here's how much money you made, here's how much you've got to pay. And we paid a lot. And so it wasn't until then Tom came forward and said, I can see how you can save a lot of money and actually make a lot of money because of taxes. And so the point I'm making is Tom went through some of our previous tax returns, amended them, and we're getting huge refunds, But the point is, that's the beauty of having good advisors. We've had bad advisors who cost us a lot of money. We paid them a lot of money to tell us, this is how much tax you have to pay. Okay? Then we have Tom, who is truly an expert and truly a tax advisor, making us money and saving us money at the same time. And the point I'm making is, look for really good advisors as you're moving on in all aspects. But the price of a good advisor, priceless.
And Tom is inside this book, Unfair Advantage. And the reason I want Tom to spend so much time was because this is what my rich dad taught me. My rich dad says you build businesses and you acquire real estate or tax advantage investments. The problem was I never had a tax accountant who understood this. So Tom is inside this book. It's about debt. There's taxes. Debt makes me rich. Taxes makes me rich. But it takes good advice. So I was doing it with Kim all these years, but we had bad advisors. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, Robert's fond of saying that accountants and lawyers tend to live in the past. And that's true. If your accountant, if what an accountant is doing is record keeping what happened in the past, doing a tax return is what happened last year, they're living in the past. What you want to do is you want to find a tax advisor who lives with you in the future and constantly focuses on your future. So when I sit down with Robert and Kim, we talk very little about the past. Okay, the past, it's gone. Nothing we can do about it. But we talk a lot about what are we going to do in the future. So when Kim's talking about, okay, I'm going to buy 1,100 units this year, the first question I have is, okay, tell me about the units because let's figure out how to get the best tax advantages out of buying those 1,100 units. Let's buy it in the right way. Let's do the right things from a tax standpoint so that we can get the best tax advantages. So that's looking towards the future. And all good advisors will look to your future, always.
So Tom, can I ask, what do people look for? How do they find a good tax advisor? What should they be asking? Or
That's a question I get all the time, of course, is what question should I ask a new advisor? Well, the challenge is that if you ask a question, you don't know whether the advisor is giving you a good answer, right? If you knew the answer, you wouldn't ask them the question in the first place, would you? So what I like to do is I like to look at advisors who ask good questions. Because all of us know a good question when we hear it. That's a good question. And the questions are most important when they're about you, when they're about your situation. What are your plans? What are you going to be doing? If you have an advisor that's constantly asking about what you want to do, what your plans are, where you are, where you're going, you have that kind of advisor, you know that their focus is on you. It's not about them. It's not about how much fees they can charge. It's about what kind of a return on investment that they can give you for the fees that you pay to them. Because see, with a good advisor, it's no longer an expense. It's not money coming out here. Now, that good advisor becomes an asset because they're putting money in your pocket every day. And that's what I look for in any good advisor is how can that advisor put money in my pocket every single day?
And I know some of you are sitting there going, I didn't come to hear about tax. But that's a poor person's attitude. Because tax is your single largest expense. And what we're talking about is we make millions of dollars and pay zero tax legally. That's smart. That's called education. It's not what those stupid school teachers tell you to just keep working harder. Because all you do when you work harder, you pay more tax. And they're going to say, when you go home and you tell your friends about what we just said, they're going to say that's illegal. And the reason is they don't have any education, and they have a very, very bad attitude. They're afraid of the tax department. What Tom is trying to say, the tax department is on your side, but you've got to do what the tax department wants you to do. So we build houses, we buy real estate, we provide oil, we build businesses, we create jobs. They love us. They don't like your school teachers. They go on strike. They want more pay. They want to work less. That's communism. So please hear me. The reason I'm on tax is you build a better country. You create jobs. You do what the government wants. You make more money. That's smart. That's education. So before going further, I want to bring up Mr. Poliak here, with Vladimir. The reason I want to bring Vladimir up here.
I will take it. I will take it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I met Vladimir last year, fell in love with him and all this. The main reason we are the same people. His business teaches people to start their own businesses. That's what he does.
Can you translate?
Dobrý den, dovolte mi taky vás pozdravit a malá improvizace teď.
Yeah. Hello, and we will ad-lib a little bit now.
Yes.
Takže já bych si dovolil poděkovat panu Kyiosakemu a Kim v první řadě, že sem přišli mezi nás a chcou nás něco naučit o daních. Já doufám, že většina z nás tomu dobře rozumí.
First of all, I would like to thank you, both of you, for coming here and trying to learn to teach us something about taxes, because
It's actually about business.
je to možná i obecnější pojem, nejenom o daních, ale o podnikání jako takovém.
No tak ono to všechno úzce souvisí, protože sice neříká tady konkrétnosti, to ani se nedá očekávat, protože daňové zákony jsou jiné u nás, jiné v Americe, ale v zásadě Tom má pravdu v tom, že v zásadě jsou stejný.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, taxes, business, all together. And despite the differences between, for example, taxation and tax system in the States and in the Czech Republic, there are some general fundamentals which are very important for us to learn.
Right. And his job is he teaches people to start their own business, right?
A vaše role nebo vaše práce je učit lidi, jak začínat biznis, jak rozjíždět podnikání, jak být úspěšný v podnikání.
Tak já děkuji Robertovi za tuto otázku. Skutečně jednou z našich nejdůležitějších nebo z největších priorit našeho podnikání a našeho biznisu je to, co dneska tady vidíte ve zkrácené verzi, pomocí seminářů učit všechny lidi, jak nastoupit cestu z toho levého kvadrantu do pravého kvadrantu. A v zásadě má pravdu v tom, že ten postoj, ta alitude je skutečně velice zdeformovaná u většiny našich lidí a když jim nabídnete možnost přejít z levé strany kvadrantu na pravou stranu, tak hledají více důvodů, proč tam nejít, než skutečně začít podnikat.
So yeah, our job is really to promote entrepreneurship by means of seminars, by means of lectures, and I have to admit that there is a very strong accent on attitude, which on many occasions with our clients is not the proper one. The proper one which can accelerate you to transform from the left quadrant to the right one, and that's a problem sometimes.
Very hard to.
Tak pokud můžu, ještě bych možná řekl jednu věc, že opravdu se projevuje výsledek toho školství a toho učení, že lidi zůstávají radši v tom levém kvadrantu a hledají příčinu své chudoby naprosto někde jinde, než je.
And we can see the consequences and side effects of our educational system, which probably fosters in people mentality of blaming their poverty on someone else, right, and not being able to move actively to the other mindset.
Right. So please explain to him, Mr. Broliak, that I am honored to work with him because he teaches people to start their own businesses.
Pan Kyiosaki říká, že je potěšen, že to může být s vámi, protože vy jste ten, který učí lidi, aby se stali podnikateli, aby rozjížděli svůj biznis, aby byli aktivními.
Možná by bylo dobré, kdyby teď pán Kyiosaki nebo paní Kim se mě něco zeptali, pokud je to k věci. Já bych možná za sebe, ještě než ukončím tady tu krátkou vložku, krátký vstup, bych řekl skutečně, že díky, aby jsme si uvědomili, že Česká republika má jedno z největších daňových a odvodů zatížení na zdravotní a sociální pojištění. Takže když to všechno sečteme, skutečně více než půl roku děláme, než máme daňové prázdniny, a s tím by se mělo něco dělat. A místo toho odbory štvou lidí do stávek za nesmyslné požadavky, proto aby se jedné skupině lidí přidali peníze a jiné skupině peníze ubrali. Pokud tohle se nevyřeší, tak budou věčné boje a věčné sociální nepokoje. To je můj postoj.
There is very high taxation in the Czech Republic. It's not specifically about taxes as such, but rather about the universal healthcare taxes and universal pension system taxes that you have to deduct from your income. And the problem is also exacerbated or strengthened by the role of trade unions in our country, which probably don't follow the conciliatory mode of communication and rather emphasize differences between employees and employers. You are also welcome, you or your wife, to ask some question, maybe to reverse the roles of today. You can now be the one who asks a question, and he will be helpful to answer if you want to know something specific about our country or something about some thoughts he mentioned.
Well, let me say this. I said this last time I was here in the Czech Republic, is that Czechoslovakia is moving from communism to capitalism, and the U.S. is moving from capitalism to communism. And the difference between the Czech people and American people is the Czech people, most people still know what communism was like. Americans do not know what communism was like. Today, we have the same problem. We have millions, over 50% of Americans today pay zero tax because they do zero work because the government's giving them money. Our school system teaches kids to work less and get paid more, and they go on strike. That's not good. America today is the biggest debtor nation in the world. Our liabilities for medical alone $75 trillion from medical alone in the US. And we have millions of workers saying, you must pay me. I don't want to work, you must pay me. That's communism. That's why America is going to go broke next 10 years. You think Greece is a problem, America is going to be bigger. So it's medical. It's people who don't work. Like my poor dad was head of labor unions. They don't want to work. They just want to get paid by taxes. So that's why it's the same. Now, the good side of it is, if you understand this side, if you understand what Mr. Polyak teaches, you don't have to be part of it. Anything you want to say about that, Tom?
Well, that is the key. You know, you have a choice. Your choice is, do I want to be over here stuck? We say the S stands for stuck, but employees are the same way. We get stuck. We get stuck in our old attitude. We get stuck in our old taxes. Okay, we get stuck putting all this money into our pensions. Okay, are those pensions even going to be there? One of the big challenges in the U.S. is we have all these people that are ready to retire, and the question is, will they have anything to retire from? Will that pension money be there? Or you have the choice. You can take control of your own life, reduce your taxes, and have so much money that you don't need to rely on anybody. You don't need to rely on a pension. You don't need to rely on the government. You can take control now, take control of your life, take control of your taxes by starting a business, by investing, by understanding, getting good financial education, good advice, so that you can take control of your life and you don't have to rely on other people.
So that's our message. Okay? That is our message.
Já samozřejmě diváci, posluchači, kteří mají překlad, tak to slyšeli. Možná pro vás to shrnu bonmotem. Obava o tom, nebo ohledně toho, že by mezi Českem a Amerikou byly nějaké zásadní rozdíly, je lichá, protože problémy s odbory, problémy se zdaněním, problémy se závislostí na sociálním systému jsou všude stejné a možná i proto je užitečná vaše práce, protože alespoň některým lidem umožňujete, aby přestali být součástí této hry, hry na práci, hry na vlastní zodpovědnost a aby začali skutečně pracovat a skutečně být zodpovědní.
Moc děkuji, ale neslyšel jsem, že by v Americe v posledním desetiletí, tak jako je to zvykem v Evropě, se tolik stávkovalo. Čím si to dokážeme vysvětlit?
Maybe one specific question concerning the differences between both shores of the Atlantic. Do you think that the Americans are less inclined to go striking in the streets? Because according our guest or our host, it seems that the Americans are less inclined than Europeans to strike, stop working, to extort, blackmail their employers, etc.
It's just starting now. They had huge fights in Madison, Wisconsin. They're having huge fights in every state right now. It's government versus private sector. It's capitalism versus communism. I'm just saying this. Watch what's happening in Greece. In 10 years, it'll be America. And your job is like if Greece goes down, nobody really cares. America goes down, we all care. And the reason we talk and we speak and all this is we need more capitalists today. And I want you to protect yourselves. That's why I would like to, I bring Mr. Polyak up here, because he is doing his best to teach people to think like capitalists. Take care of yourself. Don't expect the government to take care of you. It is the most important message, I think, today. So.
Jenom opět velice stručně, spíše formou bonmotu pro vás. Ta situace možná je odlišná ve Spojených státech než v Evropě ohledně stávek, ale podle pana Kyiosakého se to mění a Amerika možná směřuje tam, kde je teď Evropa. Za 10 let to, co je v Řecku, může být ve Spojených státech. A pan Kyiosaki zopakoval, že vám děkuji za to, že alespoň vy, alespoň lidi, kteří jsou na vás napojeni, tak trochu jdou proti proudu.
Je tady jedna výborná věc, že stejně jako pan Kyiosaki, já mám po boku manželku, která Mně hodně v tomto pomáhá, vidím to i v naší firmě, že manželské páry, které dokážou pochopit finanční problematiku stejnou optikou, tak se jim daří mnohem lépe, než když každý v rodině jak si táhne na svou stranu, anebo jeden z partnerů prostě ignoruje finance.
And he also suggested that there is a similarity maybe between you and Kim and him and his wife, because he says that there is a good point in appreciation of couples as actors or agents of economy, because when they work in concord, when they work in cooperation as a one unit, it's always strengthening the role of individual in economy.
And it's better for the children.
A je to lepší pro děti.
Jo, ale socialismus nám toto naboural a v podstatě zvýhodňuje spíše rozvrácené rodiny, než rodiny, které drží pohromadě. Já doufám, že i tohle se změní, protože dneska se vyplatí být nesezdaný než v manželství, protože z toho vyplývají různé sociální výhody. Když je žena samoživitelka, tak proto mnoho lidí se radši ani nežení a nevytváří tu dokonalou rodinnou harmonii. A myslím, že to je všechno takové zvrácené.
And there is a problem which may date several decades to the past of feeble role of family in our country, which was weakened by the communist system, and still many people here do not marry and do not live together just because it's convenient for obtaining social welfare. If you are a single mother, you are more inclined to stay so just because you are entitled to some welfare security.
It's the same in America.
No a možná poslední věc k těm daním. Skutečně velké korporace, jako je třeba firma ZFP, dokáže snížit a optimalizovat daně z dnešních třeba 20%. Já bych to odhadoval někde na 10 až 12% a těch 10% se dá ušetřit. To by měla být taková výzva i pro vás a pokud budete někdy k tomu mít dotaz, jak to vlastně funguje, tak se mě můžete za velké peníze na to zeptat. Rád vám poradím.
That was a little bit of self-promotion on his behalf, because he says that tax consultancy is a major advantage for companies, for business sector, and it's possible to slash your taxes by several percentage points, just if you have the right people to do this.
Yes. So, anyway, I want to thank Mr. Proliak. Thank you. We're going to take how long a break?
Yeah, we will take something like 30, maybe 40 minutes coffee break.
We're going to take about a 30 or 40-minute break. If you're interested in taxes or what Mr. Proliak says about taxes, please take time to talk to him at this break, and we'll see you back here in about half an hour. So thank you all very much, and thanks for being here.
And maybe let me just, before you stand up and go for the coffee and cookies, let me just remind you several important piece of information. First, there is a chance to ask some questions, for Mr. Kyiosaki. You are kindly requested to write them on paper and hand them over to hostesses, which will afterwards proceed them to Mr. Kyiosaki. And secondly, don't forget to fill in the form for all of you who are present here, because the form will entitle you to some advantages, such as an easy access to online version of today's meeting, of recording of today's meeting. Thank you once more, and see you in half an hour, in 40 minutes.